जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना। यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना। यमुनातीरावनचारी। यमुनातीरावनचारी। जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना। यमुनातीरावनचारी। यमुनातीरावनचारी। जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी। जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी। जय कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा। कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा। जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय। गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय। जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह। लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 प्रभुपाद। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस विश्वगुरु एसी भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी शील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस शील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्भागवतम की जय। श्री श्री कृष्ण रुक्मिणी सत्यभामा की जय। श्री श्री गौरनिताय की जय। श्री श्री लक्ष्मी नरसिम्हदेव की जय। विश्वगुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, Fundamental Principles of Material Nature, verse number 19. Daivat Kshubhita Dharminyam, Daivat Kshubhita Dharminyam, Daivat Kshubhita Dharminyam, Swasyam Yonau Paraha Puman, Swasyam Yonau Parapuman, Swasyam Yonau Parapuman, Adhatta Viryam Sa Asuta, Adhatta Viryam Sa Asuta, Adhatta Viryam Sa Asuta, Mahat Tattvam Hiranmayam, Mahat Tattvam Hiranmayam, Mahat Tattvam Hiranmayam, Daivat Kshubhita Dharminyam, Swasyam Yonau Parapuman, Adhatta Viryam Sa Asuta, Mahatattvam Hiranmayam, Daivakshubhita Dharminyam, Swasyam Yonau Parapuman, Adhatta Viryam Sa Asuta, Mahatattvam Hiranmayam.
Swasyam Yonau Parapuman, Adatta Viryam Sa Asuta, Mahattattvam Hiranmayam,
Daivat Kshubhita Dharminyam, Swasyam Yonau Parapuman, Adatta Viryam Sa Asuta, Mahatattvam Hiranmayam.
Swasyam Yonau Parapuman, Adatta Viryam Sa Asuta, Mahatattvam Hiranmayam.
Daivat, by the destiny of the conditioned souls. Kshubhita, agitated. Dharminyam, whose equilibrium of the modes. Swasyam, his own. Yonau, in the womb, material nature. Parapuman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Adhatta, impregnated. Viryam, semen, his internal potency. Sa, she, material nature. Asuta, delivered. Mahatattvam, the sum total of cosmic intelligence. Hiranmayam, known as Hiranmaya. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Translation. After the Supreme Personality of Godhead impregnates material nature with his internal potency. Material nature delivers the sum total of the cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiranmaya. This takes place in material nature when she is agitated by the destinations of the conditioned souls. Kindly repeat. After the Supreme Personality of Godhead impregnates material nature with its internal potency, material nature delivers the sum total of the cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiranmaya. This takes place in material nature when she is agitated by the destinations of the conditioned souls. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This impregnation of material nature is described in Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, verse 3. Material nature's primal factor is the Mahat Tattva, or breeding source of all varieties. This part of material nature, which is called Pradhana, as well as Brahman, is impregnated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and delivers varieties of living entities. Material nature in this connection is called Brahman because it is a perverted reflection of the spiritual nature. It is described in the Vishnu Purana that the living entities belong to the spiritual nature. The potency of the Supreme Lord is spiritual, and the living entities, although they are called marginal potency, are also spiritual. If the living entities were not spiritual, this description of impregnation by the Supreme Lord would not be applicable. The Supreme Lord does not put his semen into that which is not spiritual, but it is stated here that the Supreme Person puts his semen into material nature. This means that the living entities are spiritual by nature. After impregnation, material nature delivers all kinds of living entities, beginning from the greatest living creature, Lord Brahma, down to the insignificant ant in all varieties of form. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse 4, material nature is clearly mentioned as Sarva Yonishu. This means that of all varieties of species, demigods, human beings, animals, birds, and beasts, whatever is manifested, material nature is the mother, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the seed-giving father. Generally, it is experienced that the father gives life to the child, but the mother gives its body. Although the seed of life is given by the father, the body develops within the womb of the mother. Similarly, the spiritual living entities are impregnated into the womb of material nature, but the body, being supplied by material nature, takes on many different species and forms of life. The theory that the symptoms of life are manifest by the interaction of the 24 material elements is not supported here. The living force comes directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is completely spiritual. Therefore, no material scientific advancement can produce life. The living force comes from the spiritual world and has nothing to do with the interaction of the material elements. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat kripatamaham mande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. Last few days has been quite chaotic in geopolitics. It all began with some terrorists attacking some people, some tourists, innocent people in Pahalgam in Kashmir. And 26 people were killed by these terrorists. And what followed? The Indian army took action and they bombed some of the infrastructure of the terrorists within Pakistan. Pakistan did not keep quiet, they also retaliated. And to their retaliation, there was counter-retaliation by India, and this was going on. And it looked like war was imminent. Suddenly, the United States, President of the United States, Donald Trump, he announced that he had managed to broker a peace, a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. And shortly after that, both Pakistan and India also confirmed, yes, we have agreed for a ceasefire. Now the ceasefire is going on, let us see how long it will last. So everybody is saying it is very fragile because Pakistan is not known to keep its word. So in this whole incident, philosophically if we see, there are two countries who want to dominate each other. And then a third country, America, gets involved. America also wants to dominate. And this is a constant feature within this material world. Different leaders want to become more prominent. They want to become more dominant. They want to make their country foremost. And they want to control everything that goes on in the world. So this competition is part of the material world. On this earth especially, you can see this. In Kali Yuga especially, you have many, many countries, many, many leaders. There in Ukraine and Russia, there is another fight going on there. Who is going to be the dominant force? Similarly, Israel and Palestine, there is another war going on there. There also the same phenomenon. Who is going to be dominant? Now, one more thing which you can see in this whole India-Pakistan conflict is that when Pakistan offered a ceasefire, India immediately agreed and put down certain conditions for the ceasefire. That these are the conditions, if these conditions are violated, then the ceasefire will be over and we'll again attack. So, in other words, India is giving one more chance to Pakistan. Although previously also many times there has been war, conflicts between India and Pakistan, and every time Pakistan gets defeated, then after some time they'll again start the same old thing. But even after so many attempts and giving so many chances to Pakistan to rectify itself, but it not doing so, still India is giving one more chance to Pakistan. So these are two things which you can see. One is the desire to dominate. Which leader will dominate? Which country's leader will be able to mark his presence, his power, his domination over other countries and other leaders? That's number one. Number two is that the erring country is given one more opportunity to rectify itself, despite multiple failed attempts earlier. So these are two things which we can see. So this kind of thing exists even not only at the national, international level, even at the individual level, these two things are existing. So in today's verse, Kapila Deva is stating, Daivat Kshubita Dharminyam The Daivat, by the destiny of the conditioned souls, Kshubita Dharminyam, the equilibrium of the modes of material nature is agitated. And as a result, what happens? Mahat Tattvam Hiranmayam, material nature delivers the sum total of cosmic intelligence, which is known as Hiranmaya. So the important thing here to note is Daivat. So this whole material creation, this whole arrangement of bringing about Mahat Tattva from Pradhana, bringing about Mahat Tattva, then Prakriti, then all the different manifestations, the three modes of material nature, whatever we are seeing. All this huge complicated arrangement is for the purpose of Daivat, for the destiny of the conditioned souls to be met. The living entities who have come to this material nature in the first place, they have come here with that dominating mood. They want to dominate, they want to lord it over material nature and other living entities. And that is how the living entities are brought into this material world from the spiritual world. And the second thing is, Daiva Shribita Dharminyam Swasyam Yono Parappuman Adatta Viryam Sasuta. So those living entities who have that dominating mood are brought to this material world, and those living entities are placed within the Hiranmaya, within the sum total Mahatattva, from the Hiranmaya or the Mahatattva. Within that the living entities are placed. Why? To give them an opportunity again and again to fulfill their ambition to dominate. So as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that the living entities bhutva bhutva praliyate, they take birth and they die, and their birth and death cycle goes on. Not only does that birth and death cycle go on, whatever form the living entity has at the time of the end of Brahma's lifespan, when this whole universe will get wound up, at that time the living entities are given a place to stay within the body of Mahavishnu. And when again the creation happens, like it is being mentioned here, through the agitation of Mahatattva, the Hiranmaya is formed into which the living entities are put. And then further, by the action of time, Kala, the three modes of material nature start acting and the various manifestations come about. And again, that those living entities in their previous birth, whatever form they had, bird, animal, human being, devata, whatever it is, again they get that same form to continue their activity of trying to lord it over material nature. Actually, the living entities cannot dominate. Their position is to be subordinate. Artificially, the living entities have taken the position of a predominator. So, every lifespan, the living entity is trying to dominate over material nature. But what is material nature doing? Actually, material nature is dominating over the living entity. Birth, death, disease, old age, the three kinds of miseries, all these forces of material nature are imposed upon the living entity unwillingly. The living entity doesn't want these problems in his life, but nobody can avoid it. So, material nature is dominating over the living entity, and the living entity is going on trying to lord it over material nature, but failing. But still, every time the living entity is given an opportunity to try to fulfill his ambition to dominate. One is, the living entity is brought into this universe and given time for one lifespan of Brahma. Until the entire lifespan of Brahma, the living entity can go on trying to lord it over, to dominate over material nature. And then, at the end of Brahma's lifespan, the whole universe is wound up. And then when again another universe is created, again the living entities are given one more chance. You see, the same principle is working. On the one hand, you have two nations warring over each other and a third nation coming in, all of them trying to see who is the dominator. Shri Shri Krishna Rukmini Satyabhama ki jai. And then again and again the erring country is given an opportunity. Same way, all the living entities have come into this material world trying to dominate, and they are given multiple opportunities time and again to fulfill their futile attempt to dominate over material nature. So, in this whole process of this creation which goes on, Kapila Deva is stating here, Daivat Shubhita Dharminyam. So the reason is Daivat, the destiny of the conditioned souls who want to lord it over material nature. Because of that, they are given this opportunity again and again. Kshubhita Dharminyam. By when the equilibrium of the three modes of material nature, the three modes of material nature are present within Pradhana and within Mahatattva is in an undifferentiated form. When that undifferentiated three modes of material nature is agitated by Kala, as it is stated in the previous verse by Kapila Deva. So when that happens, what happens? And simultaneously, the living entities, Adatta Viryam, the living entities are placed within that Mahatattva, the Hiranmaya. What happens? Mahatattva gives rise to the Hiranmaya, from which further the agitation happens and the varieties of material manifestations, the different kinds of bodies, planets, all these things come about. So, Krishna confirms this in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna begins in the first verse by saying, Param bhuyaha pravakshyami jnananam jnanamuttamam yajñātvā munayah sarve yajñātvā munayah sarve param siddhim ito gataha. Krishna is telling Arjuna that, O Arjuna, I will now once again share with you jnananam jnanamuttamam, the best of all kinds of knowledge. And what is the speciality of this knowledge? The speciality is that Munayah Sarve, many sages in the past have understood this knowledge, and because of this, Param Siddhim Mitogataha, they have achieved the highest perfection. What kind of highest perfection? For the yogis, the highest perfection is to realize Paramatma within the heart by Samadhi and to attain the Ashta Siddhis, and finally to merge within the body of Paramatma. For the Jnanis, the ultimate goal is to merge into Brahman. And for the Bhakti Yogis, for the devotees, the final goal is to go back to Godhead. So Krishna clarifies in the next verse. Krishna says, Idam jnanam upashritya, having taken shelter of this knowledge, mama sadharmyam agataha, these sages who have understood this knowledge have taken shelter of this knowledge which I am about to give you, which is the best of all knowledge. They attain the highest destination, and mama sadharmyam agataha, they attained my nature. They have attained to the spiritual world. And not only that, sargehi nopajayante pralayecha vyatayantina. And Krishna says, these people who have attained this highest destination will not again have to take birth when the next sarga, when the next creation of the universe happens. In the earlier verses, Krishna said, Bhutva Bhutva Praliyate. Again and again, the universe is created and annihilated. And each time the creation, the universe is created, again the living entities are put into this universe to try to dominate over material nature. So Krishna already told that. So now Krishna is saying, however, although this is the arrangement, that the living entities are again and again put into the material world, each time the universe is, a new universe is created, although this is so, sarge nopajayante, sargehi nopajayante, those who have understood this knowledge will not again take birth. Not only that, pralaya, at that time of dissolution of the universe or at the time of death, navyathayanticha, they will not be disturbed, they will not be bewildered. Meaning, what happens is, at the time of dissolution of the universe, all the living entities are put into sleep within the body of Vishnu. And again, in the next creation, they have to again come out and resume their activities. So, actually, at that time of pralaya, the living entities are put into bewilderment. They are put into sleep. Whereas these sages who have understood this knowledge, they will not be bewildered. They will, mama sadharmyam agataha, they will attain the spiritual world and they will not again have to take birth within this material world. So what is this knowledge that Krishna is talking about? Mama yonir mahad brahma, tasmin, what is that? In the third verse, Krishna says, tasmin garbham dadamyaham, which Prabhupada is quoting in the purport, this verse. Mama yonir mahad brahma, tasmin garbham dadamyaham, sambhavah sarva bhutanam, tato bhavati bharata. Krishna tells Arjuna that these living entities, the conditioned souls, they are placed within the womb of material nature. Tasmin garbham dadamyaham. By whom? I do it. I am placing the conditioned living entities within material nature. And this material nature, mama yonir mahad brahma, that mahat tattva is source. The source of that mahat tattva is also Krishna only. So Krishna places the living entities into that mahat tattva to again take birth. And sambhavaha sarva bhutanam, and thus the repeated birth and death of the living entities in different forms according to their activities is made possible. And then Krishna says, sarva yonishu kaunteya murtayaha sambhavantiyaha tasam brahma mahadyonir aham bija pradaha pita. Now the question comes, okay, Krishna is the source of mahat tattva, material nature, which is making all this material manifestation possible. And Krishna only placed the living entities within that mahat tattva, within the Hiranmaya. Now the question is, where did the living entities come from? Where did Krishna get all these living entities? So Krishna is saying, sarva yonishu kaunteya, whatever living entities are there, sarva yonishu kaunteya, murtayaha sambhavantiyaha. Whatever forms the different living entities are getting, sometimes that of a human being, sometimes that of an animal, that of a bird, that of a tree or a plant, of an aquatic, etc. 8,400,000 species. All these forms, they are getting on account of Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir, by the action of Mahat Tattva. So the Mahat Tattva makes it possible for the living entities to get different bodies, and Aham Bija Pradaha Pita, all the living entities, they are created or they are emanating from Krishna. Krishna is the seed-giving father of all the living entities. So this statement is made by Krishna. So we have to understand that for a yogi to be able to go back to the spiritual world, mama sadharmyam agataha, to attain to the nature of Krishna, to go back to the spiritual world and to be able to become free from the repeated birth and death cycle, not to have to again take birth when a new universe is created, not having to again go into slumber at the time of dissolution of the universe. For this to be possible, what a yogi has to understand is Number one, that Krishna is the source of material nature. Krishna is not created by material nature. Krishna is not a creation of material nature, like the Mayavadis think. The Mayavadis think that Krishna, Rama, Narasimha, these are all Saguna Brahman. That is, Brahman, when it takes on material qualities, it takes a form like Krishna. Sorry. The Brahman, when it takes on material qualities, then that Brahman takes on the forms of Krishna, Rama, Narasimha, etc. These are all material forms which are manifested out of the three gunas. Therefore, it is Saguna Brahman. Brahman, when combined with the three gunas, Satoguna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna, the modes of goodness, passion and ignorance, then we have forms of the incarnations like Krishna, Rama, etc. This is what Mayavadi state. But if you have such an understanding that Krishna's form is a creation of matter, then what will happen? Mama sadharmya magataha, we will not be able to go back to Godhead. And the assurance Krishna is giving, what is that? Sarge. Sarge nopajayante. Sarge hi nopajayante. Pralayecha na vyathayanti. That state where you will not have to again take birth when another creation happens, nor will you be bewildered when the dissolution of the universe happens. That a Mayavadi, an impersonalist, a Jnana Yogi will not be able to attain. And the same thing is stated in the Srimad-Bhagavatam also. The Bhagavatam says, Aruhya krichrena parampadam tatapatantyado anadrita yushmadangriyaha. Those jnanis, having krichrena with great difficulty, attained almost the final destination. They have got mukti, they have got liberation, they have merged into Brahman. But avishuddha buddhayaha, because their intelligence is not still fully purified. Why? Because anadrita yushmadangriyaha, they have not taken shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. Tatapatantyadaha, they have to again fall into this material universe. And again, whenever sarga happens, whenever the next creation happens, they have to again take birth within this material world. So, if somebody assumes that Krishna's form is created by matter, then he cannot attain permanent liberation, he cannot attain sadharmya, mama sadharmya. He cannot attain to the nature of Krishna. When one understands, as Krishna is saying, that mama yonir mahat brahma, that Mahatattva, material nature, is emanating from Krishna. Krishna has created that material nature, number one. And number two, the living entities are also created by Krishna. Krishna is the source of all the living entities also. Again, the Mayavadis, they think that the living entities are not actually different from that absolute truth, from the Brahman. Under illusion, the Brahman is thinking that we are many, many living entities. But Krishna is saying, no, all the living entities are also Aham bija pradaha pita. Krishna is saying, I am the seed-giving father of all living entities. That means all the living entities are different from Krishna. They are all individuals eternally. And as Krishna is declared in another part of the Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivamcho jivaloke jivabhuta sanatanaha. Eternally, the living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. They are separated parts and parcels of Krishna. So one who understands this, that number one, Krishna is not created by material nature. Material nature is created by Krishna. Number two, the living entities are created by Krishna. They are not equal to Krishna. They are not the Supreme Brahman. They cannot become equal to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, number two. And number three, when you look at the atheists, they claim that the living entities, the consciousness of the living entities has come about at a certain point when these 24 elements, which have been described by Kapiladeva earlier, the 24 elements, the 5 working senses, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, the 5 objects of the senses, 15, then mind, intelligence, false ego, 18, and then we have the consciousness of the living entity. And so like this, all these 20 elements, they are combining together, and when they combine together, at a certain point of time, by their interaction, what happens? Consciousness comes into being. This is what atheists claim. Of course, modern day atheists are even more gross. They don't even look at these 20 elements. They simply say somehow matter came together and consciousness has come about. So, but those who are the atheistic Sankhya philosophers, they say that the interaction of these 20 elements brings about consciousness at certain point. But what is Krishna saying? No. Consciousness doesn't come about on its own. The living entities who are conscious are created by Krishna. They are his part and parcel. Aham bija pradaha pita. Krishna is the seed-giving father for all the conscious living entities. So consciousness is not a product of matter, and it is an energy of the living entity who is eternally part and parcel of Krishna. That means matter comes from life, life never comes from matter. So one who understands these three things, such a person, mama sadharmyam agataha, they can attain to the nature of Krishna. They can attain to the spiritual world. And once we go to that spiritual world, sarge, when the sarga happens, when the next creation of the universe happens, what happens? Sargenopajayante. We don't have to again take birth into the material world. We will not be placed into the next created universe again, like we have been done now. So, those who are liberated living entities, they will go to the spiritual world. The conditioned souls will remain within this material world, and until the end of the life of Brahma, they will go on taking different births within this material universe. And at the end of the lifespan of this universe, what will happen? They will go again into slumber. And because Daivat, their destiny is still not fulfilled. They have so many karmas still waiting. They have so many desires to be fulfilled. That is still there. So the living entities cannot permanently be in that slumber. What happens when the next creation happens? First, that Pradhana will start acting, and Mahattattva, a lump of matter, is formed. And within that lump of matter, the total living entities are put in the form of Hiranmaya. What is this Hiranmaya? Hiranmaya is the sum total of the living entities which are put into Mahattattva. And this Hiranmaya is like a very brightly effulgent globe. And why? Because all the living entities are combined within that Hiranmaya. So Krishna, because Krishna is self-effulgent, the living entities also have some effulgence. So when all the millions of living entities are put together, combined together, what happens? They will emit an effulgence. And that's called the Hiranmaya. And that Hiranmaya also has a super soul. All the souls are put within that Hiranmaya, within Mahattattva. For that Hiranmaya also, there is a super soul, which is Karanodakasai Vishnu, Mahavishnu. He is the Mahavishnu, he is the source of Mahattattva, and he is the super soul of the sum total of the living entities. And when the three modes of material nature get agitated on account of Kala, as Kapiladeva stated in the previous verse, Anta Purusha Rupena Kala Rupena Yo Bahihi Samanveti Esha Sattvanam Bhagavan Atma Mayaya. So, by the force of Kala, the three modes of material nature get separated out and they get agitated. Then what happens? The Mahattattva starts manifesting different varieties, different planets, and different whatever the material elements are there, earth, water, fire, air, space, all these elements get differentiated out. So, into that universe, then what happens? The Karanodakasai Vishnu enters as Garbhodakasai Vishnu. He becomes the super soul of the universe. Mahavishnu is the super soul of the sum total of the living entities. He is the super soul of Hiranmaya. And then from that, when the universe is created, Mahavishnu expands himself as Garbhodakasai Vishnu, and that Garbhodakasai Vishnu is the super soul of the universe. And then when within that universe all the different varieties are manifested on account of the combination to different degrees of the three modes of material nature, what happens? That Garbhodakasai Vishnu further expands as Kshirodakasai Vishnu. Andantarastam Paramanu Chayantarastam. And he enters into each and every atom as well as every living entity's body as Paramatma. So he becomes the super soul of every living entity as well as every atom within this universe. That is Kshirodakasai Vishnu. And in this way, at every step, there is the hand of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without which the creation cannot happen, the living entities cannot exist. So this is the whole process of creation. The universe is not created simply because of some bang, without any purpose. Some explosion happened, things all came together. By chance, some primordial soup happened. By chance, the amino acids got formed. By chance, they combined and formed the first unicellular organism. And by chance, further multicellular organisms developed. By chance, somewhere along the way, consciousness came. By chance, along the way, intelligence came into existence. By chance, along the way, mind came into existence. These are all pipe dreams. These are all, very good fictional stuff. You can, as a science fiction, you can read all this and enjoy this. But this is not reality. Reality is every step Mahavishnu is involved, and he is the source of all the matter that we see, as well as all the living entities. And the living entities, as long as they harbor that ambition to dominate over material nature, Daiva Kshubita Dharminyam, again and again, by the force of their destiny, they will be given an opportunity again and again to fulfill their ambition to dominate over material nature. And if we don't rectify ourselves, like Pakistan keeps getting again and again beaten up by India, like that we will have to keep getting beaten up by the stringent laws of material nature. We will have to suffer the threefold material miseries. We have to suffer repeated birth, death, disease and old age. And repeatedly we have to keep taking birth. Every time the universe is wound up and again the sarga, the creation happens, again we will have to come into the universe, start a new chapter. Again, this whole cycle will go on repeating. So therefore, an intelligent person, he should not get caught up in the cycle. He should try Daiva Kshubita Dharminyam Swasyam Yono Parappuman. So one has to realize that Parappuman, who is that person who is creating all these things? That is Parappuman. All these political leaders within this world, within this earth, they are fighting for domination. India is fighting for domination. Pakistan is fighting for domination. China is fighting for domination. America is fighting for domination. We can see that very clearly in the geopolitics after that Pahalgam incident, whatever is happening. But Krishna is not like that. He is not competing for domination. He is Parappuman. He is transcendental. He is beyond this whole game of competition trying to dominate within this material universe. He is Parappuman. He is transcendental. He is beyond this and he has no competition. Parappuman, he is the supreme person already. He has no competition, no equal. So instead of getting caught up trying to dominate within this material world, what we should do? We should surrender to that Parappuman. Daiva Kshubita Dharminyam Swasya Yono Parappuman. That supreme person who has created this Mahatattva as well as all the living entities, Adatta Viryam Sasuta, and who has caused the material nature to give birth to Mahatattvam Hiranmayam, to give birth to that Hiranmaya which is filled with all the living entities. And we will see as we go forward how Kapila Muni explains how this Hiranmaya further comes out with all the living entities and how all the living entities get different forms and continue, they resume their activity of trying to dominate within this material world. So we should not get caught up in this foolish, futile attempt. Instead, we should surrender to that Parapuman, that Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by surrendering to Him, Mama Sadharmyam Agataha, we can attain to the nature of Krishna, and by doing that, Sargehi Nopajayanti, we don't have to again take birth whenever creation happens. And by this, we can attain to the blissful position of being eternally a servant of Krishna in the spiritual world. If somebody has any question or comment, we can discuss.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
We see that Mahavishnu is in a state of yoga nidra. So when the living entities after the dissolution of the universe enters into the body of Mahavishnu, what is the state of their consciousness? Are they in Sushupti or Swapna or in
Awakened state. Jagarana.
Turiya state.
Jagarana.
Turiya.
Jagarana.
Okay.
Turiya is the stage of Vishnu. So the living entities, they can exist in three states of consciousness. One is Jagrata state of consciousness. He is awake. We are aware of everything that goes around us. Next is Swapnavastha. When we sleep, in a dream, we are active in many ways. And the third state of consciousness is Sushupti, where we are in deep slumber. And when we are in deep slumber, what happens? Our consciousness is completely subdued. Consciousness is subdued, meaning we are not at all aware what is going around us. There is bombing going on. Pakistan is sending so many missiles. We are in Sushupti, not aware at all. No idea what is going on. So some people are like that, you see, it's deep sleep. Some people, they are so deep in their sleep. People say, you put a firecracker under his pillow, he will not wake up. Some people are like that, snoring peacefully. No, this one, awareness of what is going on in the world. So that's the stage of Sushupti. Sushupti is a state where our consciousness gets suspended. We are there, we are existing. Life symptoms are still there. Breathing is there, heartbeat is there, all these things are there. Body temperature is there, that means person is there. But his consciousness is completely suspended, because of which he is not at all aware of what is happening. So in a similar state, when the living entity is put to rest at the time of dissolution of the universe, what happens? He again goes into that state of Sushupti, where his consciousness becomes suspended. And unlike the state of Sushupti in our current state, our body will still be there. And the bodily symptoms the life symptoms, the prana symptoms are still there within the body. But in that state, after the dissolution, what happens is, the living entity, his body is also unmanifest. He doesn't have a material body. Just the subtle body is there, mind, intelligence and false ego, and his consciousness is suspended, and in that unmanifest form, he is within the body of Vishnu. And that is how, when creation happens, when within that Mahatattva, the Hiranmaya is put, all the living entities together are there. They don't have any particular form. Specific form is not there. Their body is unmanifest. And when again the three modes of material nature start acting and the varieties of bodies are manifested, immediately their material body gets manifested. Is that okay?
So the mind, intellect and false ego, you mean to say, still continues to exist inside the body of Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is transcendental to this material creation.
Sorry?
Mahavishnu is transcendental to this material creation.
That is
whereas
true.
the mind, intellect and false ego are part of the material creation.
Correct.
So these three elements, you mean to say, gets transcended to the higher dimension.
Because the living entities are still conditioned. They are still in a conditioned state. They have not got liberated. So when we say conditioned, what are we conditioned by? We are conditioned by the subtle body, not by the gross body. Gross body is a manifestation of the subtle body. According to my desires, according to my thoughts, according to the consciousness that I have, I am given a body suitable for that consciousness. If I live my life like an animal in this human form of life, next birth I'll get an animal form, because my consciousness is like that of an animal. So my external body, my gross body, is determined by my subtle body. You understand? Therefore, actual conditioning is not the gross body, it is the subtle body. So as long as we are within this material world, as long as we are in the conditioned state, it means we are conditioned by the subtle body. You understand? So the living entities, just like the gross body of the living entity is unmanifest, that subtle body is also there within the living entity, may not be in the form which we currently experience. Currently we can clearly make out, I have a mind with which I think, I've got a certain intelligence with which I can understand, I can comprehend, I can perform certain activities, I can give certain direction for carrying out different activities. So we can make out the different functions of mind and intelligence because they are clearly differentiated. But when we are in the state of suspended consciousness, that subtle body will also be not differentiated like this. That will also be undifferentiated. Because Prabhupada says that when the next sarga happens, when the next creation happens, whatever body the living entity had in his previous life, as it is being mentioned in today's verse also, Daivat, according to that destiny, he will resume that similar type of body or whatever next body he has to get. So how is that body determined? It is determined by the subtle body. So if the subtle body is not accompanying him, the living entity, how will he get the next body? Isn't it? So therefore, we have to understand that the living entity, until he is liberated, he will continue to be accompanied by the subtle body, material subtle body. Now, the question comes that Vishnu is all spiritual. So within him, how is something which is material manifest? But then you have to understand, material energy is also energy of Vishnu only. And Mahat Tattva has come from Vishnu only. So, and within that Mahat Tattva, Vishnu himself enters as Garbhodakasai Vishnu. And Paramanu Chayantarastam, he has entered into each and every atom which we are seeing here. So Vishnu has entered within that atom, within that matter also. So that is the supremacy of Vishnu, that although Prakritistopi tad gunaihina yujyate, etadishanam isasya. This is the supremacy of Krishna, that he will enter as Vishnu into matter, or as Krishna himself he will enter into matter, but still he will maintain his original spiritual position. His position will not get degraded. Whereas we living entities, because we are not the supreme spirit, when we enter into matter, we become conditioned immediately by that material nature. You understand? Does that answer the question? Any other question? Any other comment? Yes, please. Yes.
So at the end of dissolution, so the living entity continues at the same state again at the creation.
Yes.
So what is the need for this entire process of dissolution and creation? The universe can go on to exist
eternally.
Infinitely, yes.
Yeah. So you have to understand, there are a couple of things in this. Number one, the material nature of this whole created material universe, material manifestation is, it is temporary, it is not permanent. So therefore, nothing can be permanent in this material world. So if you have a universe which is eternally there, then that's the spiritual world. Then it's no more material world. You understand? So the material world at every level, at the individual level, we also have to undergo repeated birth and death. Why? We can remain in this body eternally and keep on trying to satisfy our material desires, no? Why this arrangement that eternally I cannot be in this material body? Because this arrangement is temporary. So at the individual level also, our body will get annihilated. At the universal level also, the universe will also get annihilated from time to time. Bhutva bhutva praliyate. That's the difference between spiritual world and material world. Material world is temporary at every level. From the individual level up to the universal level, it keeps undergoing dissolution and creation. Whereas the spiritual world is always eternal. There is no creation and dissolution. You understand? So, this is a permanent feature of this material manifestation and all-pervasive feature of this material manifestation, that it is temporary. Everywhere you will have this creation and dissolution happening constantly. Whether you are taking birth in the earthly planet or in Brahma's planet or in Narakaloka, wherever you go, birth and death are all pervading. That's the nature of this material world. Because otherwise, if that arrangement is not there, Daivat, the destiny of the conditioned soul, cannot be met. Some punya I have got in some life where I have to become a Brahma. Suppose this universe is eternal and Brahma is sitting there already. How will I ever get that opportunity to become Brahma? I also have to be given no opportunity. Equal opportunity has to be given. Krishna is impartial. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that he is completely impartial. So, every living entity, according to the punya he has got or the papa karma he has done, he has to take different forms from Brahma down to the smallest ant. So, for that, the arrangement has to have a temporary phase. So, because the position of Brahma is such that, the position of Brahma is, he will live as long as this universe is there. And when he dies, the universe will get dissolved. So, nobody else can become Brahma within the lifespan of this Brahma, within this universe. But then some jiva has got that punya, he has to become Brahma. Then what will happen to him? Unless this universe is dissolved and another universe is created, how will that living entity get that fulfillment? It will not happen. You understand? Therefore, at every level, individual to universal level, you have to have a temporary arrangement, giving an opportunity temporarily, because for a living entity to fulfill a certain desire also, certain punya is required, which is the currency. And when he spends that currency, that punya is over, that position, what he has got is also over. So, unless this material universe is temporary, the living entity cannot try to satisfy his desires. That whole purpose of the creation will get spoiled, will be defeated. You understand? So, that's how we have to look at it. So, we'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.